Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. So, quick introduction. My hair is not normally like this. I am sick, so I haven't bothered to mess with it. It was up today, so I just took it down. My daughter is sick as well. She's asleep, and she keeps waking up. So this is the third review I've done tonight. I've done My Fair Lady, and it's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. So, if you've watched those, this may get interrupted. Um, so be warned. All right, so on to the review for this video. So this is Forever in a Long, Long Time by Caela Carter. I may be pronouncing this first. So this is probably a middle grade um, fiction book. It's very, very interesting. It's told by a young girl by the name of Flora. Now, Flora's been adopted. She's in about fourth grade. It's the end of the year. And she was adopted by a woman that she calls her person. She doesn't really, in her head, in face to face, she calls her mom. And her mother, her adoptive mother, has married after adopting them, and then he adopted them. He's a teacher at the school. They go to a private Christian school because it's small. It's not because I believe she's a doctor. And she's either a doctor or a lawyer. I can't remember which. But yeah, she's sending Flora and her brother, whose name is what's his brother's name? Julian, to this school because it's small. So at the start of the story, Flora's class pet gives birth. It's a mouse, and they are given as their religious homeworks to name the babies. Now, what this brings up between Flora and Julian is that they don't think they were born, like physically born. Somehow they got into their heads that they weren't born like normal creatures. So, and this comes about when they found out their adoptive mother is pregnant. Now, their adoptive father is divorced, and he has a daughter, and she comes over every weekend. They go to the same school, but she doesn't have much to do with them at the school. And then she pays attention to them. Now, because of their childhood, Julian's about a year younger. He hides food. He hoards food. They do not quite know why until later in the book. But he hides food. And Flora's eventually, because they've been with her person, that's what she routinely calls her mother. Sorry. Again, sick. They've been with her for about 2 years at this point. So she's kind of trying to get her brother to stop. Now, her issue is sometimes she has a hard time getting her words out. So she gets worked up and she has a hard time finding the right words for things. She's not disabled in any way. But again, she has some language problems. And her brother was also, I mean, both of them have been in the system since they were very, very young. I think you find out throughout the stories that they were turned over and kind of abandoned when Julian was like 2 or like 3, and she was about 4. So they were still really young. So what kind of happens is through this, once their adoptive mother finds out that they don't believe that they were born, she's like, what the heck? So she takes them back to the psychologist that they'd seen prior. They'd seen before. They used to go every week after she adopted them. And a couple of things come out. One, she had been hiding letters and postcards from their previous home, and the psychologist pretty much tells her off for it. Politely, but it's like you can't hide their past from them. And she's like, she was trying to protect them. And Julian had found them, some of them. So, I don't know what he was doing. But he had found them. So there was a trust issue there. And it goes on to their mother freaking out because it's like, why on earth do they not believe they were born? And they eventually, after going on some issues, decide to, when school is out, because there's a lot of other stuff going on here, go on a vacation and try to trace their background, because she doesn't have a lot of information. woman who tried to adopt them lost them, and they had these, well, I would call a baby book, or they call life books. And a lot of this stuff was lost. So they go on vacation, in part to vacation, in part to kind of trace the kids' backgrounds, because she doesn't have a lot of information. And so at first they go back to the home where they were before she adopted them. And this woman has a lot of kids, but she really does love them. And one of the girls that was older, that Flora was friends with, had just been adopted, and she was older. Again, so these kids they're old for adoptive purposes, but they're still, again, she's fourth grade, so she's about 9-10 years old. So, and I think her adoptive father's daughter is about the same age. They share a room when, I think Helena is the name of her, stays with them. I don't see her name in these sections. Just, so, and then of course Julian's a year younger. So there was an issue between her. They got in a fight, and the biological daughter of their adoptive father, his ex-wife was not happy. She thinks the kids are screwed up, and she doesn't want her daughter around them. And the daughter is lying about why on earth Flora hit her, which, again, there was an issue. They got into Julian's closet food and ate it, and there was a fight. And then she was making fun of Julian, and Flora obviously got very mad and hit her, and she got in trouble for it. And they eventually find out kind of why, but this ex-wife is not happy. So she's trying to keep her away from the father, because she thinks Flora and Julian are violent and crazy. Of course, Flora's never hit anybody before. She was defending her brother. And her brother, they tell kind of the same story, and of course the ex-wife isn't happy. Now, this is near the end of the school year. Now, they go on this vacation. After they talk to the foster mother they had with, before they were adopted, they finally found the woman who was kind of going to adopt him, but it fell through. And this woman had issues. She was the one who got rid of all their stuff and supposedly had their life books, and they were gotten rid of. And it turns out that she wanted perfect children, and Flora was traumatized and was always watching. She wasn't talking at this point. And she was like 7 years old. And Julian was perfect and giggly and a happy little boy. But so she wanted to adopt Julian and not Flora. But they didn't apparently want to separate them. So, because they were very, very close. And Flora only spoke to Julian at this point. So they basically took them away from her. And she was not happy. She was, and yes, she was told off by the girls. I don't know. Find the name of the mother. Elena's the name of the daughter. As I open up the book. Let's see if I can find Mom's original name. In this case, her teacher. Let's see here. It's a very interesting book. Let's see. What on earth is her name? I'm not finding her name here. I know they're getting fights about. They tell Julian and Flora first that they're having a baby, and Elena's not happy about it. So let's see. See if I can find. Let's see if I can find her name. I know she's spoken to at some point. Nonetheless, let's see. I think, is it Emily? Yeah, Emily is the name of her biological, is the name of the adoptive mother. So they find out, of course, she tells off this woman who is in this perfect house, and she wanted well children, and she thought something was wrong with Flora. And of course, there's not. She's been traumatized. So then they go back to a gate. They trace her further back, and they get back to this gay couple who had them for a while. And they're the ones who took them to swimming lessons and got Flora in speech. And by the time she left them, she was chattering like crazy. She was like 4 when they got her. And they wanted to adopt them. But their home wasn't suitable. They had, apparently, because Julian and Flora were sharing a room, even though they are biological siblings, their home wasn't acceptable. The reality is they were lesbians. So they actually separated, so one of them will periodically foster for short term. But they're the ones who had the life books, and they bring these 2 back into their life. And then they get back to the temporary foster. And this woman takes in lots of little kids. And she was the one. And by this time, Elena's with them. And Elena is beginning to realize what type of life that her adoptive siblings have come from. And so they get to this short-term foster place where this woman has lots of kids, is timing how they must eat, not giving them enough food. Elena actually goes off on her. It's like, you're the reason my brother hides food. And obviously, she's not happy about this. She's being accused of abusing children. And it's like, I am a temporary. This is not my job. She takes in temporary kids. But Julian and Flora with her for about 11 months. But they do find out that they were just dropped off. And there really isn't anything else. They don't know anything. And it's near the end of the book, and they're talking about how Emily talks to Lane. It's like, your parents taught you how to love. They taught you how to smile. They interacted with you, how important this person-to-baby interaction was in teaching you how to love. And Elena begins to understand that her foster siblings, someone did that for them, but they do not know who. But then they went through all sorts of other stuff. And so she understands that they didn't have the childhood she did. They didn't have that. And it kind of ends with the understanding, particularly Flora's understanding, that her and Julian, they were born. Someone did love them. But they had to give them up for whatever reason. And she comes to accept that. Emily comes to accept that. Julian, they come to, and they become a family, and how it's their little nuclear family with Elena, and with, of course, this lesbian couple who's now coming into their life, because they're the ones who gave them the life books. And so they have a lot of at least childhood pictures of them. And these women really did care and are happy to come back into their lives and be accepting. And it's like, okay, these kids that we originally wanted to adopt, we now can interact with and be part of their lives. And it's this understanding of, this is a family. And then they're going to have a baby. They don't know whether it's a boy or a girl. It ends before that. But this understanding of Flora and how she comes to understand what family means. That it's not just her and her brother. That she has these other people in her life. And where she comes from doesn't quite matter. And Julian understands that too. It's a very interesting book. I found it very, very enjoyable. Let's see, how long is it? It is fiction. It's about 309 pages, so it's a decently long time. So, and of course, Flora was afraid. One of the other parts of it, she was afraid she was going to get held back, but she's not. She's going to move on into 5th grade. She has a better relationship with her foster sister, with her adopted sister, and again, this Elena is coming to understand how to accept her other family members. And that, because there was a lot of fights, it's like that she was not, the baby was going to be more Elena's than it was Flora and Julian's like, no, baby's going to live with us full time. It's going to be more ours. And yeah, the concept of family. So that's the main theme of this book, is what does family mean? And they come to understand it was. And then Flora also eventually tells Emily that in her head she calls her person, because Emily is her person. And Emily comes to understand this as well. You also have the journey of the mother, who's this is what it means again to be family. And so it's a really, really interesting, really fantastic book. I enjoyed reading it. So I highly recommend it. I definitely going to see upper elementary, early middle school is going to be more the focus of this book. The reason it is in children's, at least through our public library, is because Flora is about 9-10 years old. So one of the ways they do it in the library system I have is, and no, this makes no sense, is if the protagonist is a teenager, it's in teen. If the protagonist is younger than that, it's in children's. So, and I don't know if they have a tween area. But this is definitely late elementary. This can go into high school. So this is, that's where I would kind of put this. Again, it's a very good book, easy reading. If you're talking about adoption, if you're talking about family and what that means, if your kid has an interest in that, again, this is all told by the point of view of this 10-year-old, and really trying to come to terms with who she is and what family means and how this family dynamic works. If you're talking about different family dynamics, because again, you have these two foster kids. They were adopted by Emily. Then she dated and married and got married. Now he brought into his daughter from his previous relationship. So, and he legally adopted Flora and Julian. And then they're bringing a biological child that belongs to both of them. So it's a very interesting show of how complicated family can be. And then, of course, in the end of the book, they're bringing in this lesbian couple who had been part of Julian and Flora's life and had wanted to adopt them but had not been able to, and are now coming in and joining in as part of this family because they invited him to Julian's birthday. So, and they're bringing them into their family. So it's very interesting in looking at how complex families can be and different family dynamics and how things are working and what, again, it means to be a family. So that's the end of this video. I really highly recommend this book. It was very, very good to read. If you like what you see, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. I cover books like this. That was a discovery of mine. One of the reasons I enjoy doing this channel. My nose is running. Because again, mixture of allergies and a cold. It's been very, very windy here in Arizona. This winter, spring, it's February. So my allergies are going bonkers. And I'm working on getting that taken care of. So, as are my daughters. So, she's been up and down. Luckily, she seems to be down for a little bit longer. So, I cover a lot of things. I'm covering musicals this evening. Again, I've covered when I've just been filming The Great Pumpkin, Children, Charlie Brown thing, and My Fair Lady. So, I did cover musicals this year. I covered unicorns. I covered LGBTQ stuff. I covered vaccines. I covered Caribbean American History Month. I covered African American History Month. I've covered various book series from the Guardians of Ga'Hoole to the Princess Diaries to covered some more Tamora Pierce this year. I am covering going back to Meg Cabot for like a 6-part series, then going back to finishing off the Catherine Lasky stuff on her wolves and her polar bears. Then I'm moving into the graphic novels next year of the Animorphs. And then I'm looking at the Anne of Green Gables series and going through that in detail. And then I'm going on to the Boxcar Children. And then I have another fantasy series that I'm not familiar with that I'm throwing on. That should finish off the rest of the year. That is what I have planned right now. And again, I do films as well. Again, I'm doing musicals. Mary Poppins, My Fair Lady, Funny Girl. I'm doing mysteries at the end of this year. So we're doing I'm doing some Agatha Christie stuff. I did find mysteries to back up all 19 boxcar children. I don't know how, but I did. And mostly it's television shows. So you'll be looking at some of that. The Animorphs is going to be done some sciencey videos, and then I have no idea what's counteracting other stuff. The Anna Green Gables, of course, I have the 4 films, and then I have the 7 series TV series, The Road to Avonlea, or Avonlea, depending on which side of the border you go, because it's Canadian. So, and what it was called. So I'll be reviewing all of that. So like and subscribe. Check out the rest of the channel. I have a lot of stuff available. Thank you.